I'm really flattered to have the opportunity to speak in such a short period twice at the Institute for Cultural Diplomacy here in Berlin. Today you invited me to talk about the economic walls and in the international economy. Maybe it will not be a mistake to say that walls are erected by worlds that believe that they have a better quality of life than those who are behind the wall, and they want to protect this quality of life intact from outside invasion. Number of walls have been erected since the end of the World War II, protecting different components of the quality of life. Starting from the UN system of walls, UN is pillared on the UN Security Council, and the UN Security Council is pillared on the 5 permanent members of the Security Council. And ending with the EU system of walls, which includes Schengen, the Eurozone, NATO, and OSCE, we have a wide variety of walls everywhere around ourselves. I'm not going to talk today on how to delete the walls. I want to talk how to make them unnecessary. And maybe Berlin and the Institute for Cultural Diplomacy is the best place to talk about how to make the walls obsolete. To make the walls obsolete, roughly speaking, we have to make the quality of life something universal. And I wanted to ask you, do you know what is the quality of life? Does everybody know in the audience what is quality of life? If you know, please raise your hand. Okay, so the majority doesn't know what is quality of life. But maybe you feel what is quality of life. You very easily can say the quality of life here, for me, is better than the quality of life there. The quality of life is a number. This is the quality of life. This is a number which is derived by a relatively simple formula. This formula takes into account between 10 and 20 different criteria, like life expectancy, health care, education, ecology, pensions, inflation, military conflict, security, etc., 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 between 10 and 20 different criteria. And the quality of life is not a frozen concept. It evolves. Very recently, it was added a new criterion. This is access to internet. This is also an element of the quality of life. And the result which this formula gives could be 6.3, 2.5, 9.1. This is the quality of life in any respective country. And the big target of every government is to increase the quality of life in a sustainable way. There are two very big problems when you want to increase the quality of life. The first problem is that when you improve one of the criteria, you frequently disprove another one. For example, if you want to increase the pensions, you will immediately increase the inflation, as Minister Arsenis will tell all of us. Or if you want to pour more money into healthcare, then you will increase the public spending and you will have to reduce some of the money which you will have inevitably to invest in ecology. So the other problem is the sustainability. This is whether you want the quality of life to be increased today on the expense of tomorrow, or you want to keep it today a little bit frozen on the expense of rising it up tomorrow. This problem is called a problem of optimization in mathematics. When you have number of different criteria, you want to find the optimal solution of the problem, and this is called optimization problem. And there is a huge theory in mathematics and in science in general, which is called optimization theory. This problem is solvable. This is solvable. What every democratic government is doing every day is solving such an optimization problem. And very frequently, the solutions are found by instinct, but not by formulas or by computers. In each election campaign, every party is promising, to cut the long story short, is promising nothing else but increased sustainable quality of life. Increased and sustainable quality of life. The left parties, center-left parties, usually prefer to stress on the quality of life today than on the quality of life tomorrow, while the center-right parties have the opposite preference, to stress on the quality of life tomorrow at the expense of the quality of life today. The electoral promises are usually, if we put them into figures, Party A says, I will take you from quality of life which is 4.5 today to 4.6 next year. The other party says, I will take you from 4.5 today to 5.0 in 3 years from now. These are different approaches. Frequently the parties promise miracles, but there are no sustainable miracles at all. The task of every government is to bring the country for 4.5 to 4.x or to 5.y. Actually, and this is what the usual constituency will have to do. I'm a simple voter. When I go to vote to put my ballot, I'm supposed to be a calculator to calculate whether the promises of Party A are true or the promises of Party B are true. I will make a very simple analogy, which, however, works very well. To derive the country from 4.5 to 5.0 is absolutely similar to as if you're bringing an airplane from Berlin to New York. You need a minimal duration of the flight. You need maximal safety of the flight. You need fuel exhausted to be also minimal one. And you need the comfort of the passengers to be a maximal one. You need the price of the ticket to be minimal. And you need the number of passengers that you are flying to be maximal. This is exactly the same problem which I mentioned before. This is again the problem for optimization. When you take different criteria which are controversial to each other and you want to find the optimal figure between all of them, this is the same optimizational problem. So to solve the problem with the quality of life is exactly the same as to solve the problem with how to fly your plane from Berlin to New York. Both are optimizational problems. My thesis today is the following. We can maximize sustainable increase of the quality of life only by eliminating elections from the democratic process. In 1947, Churchill said in the House of Commons that democracy is the worst method of governance, but nothing better has been invented so far. This is a famous phrase of Churchill, and I'm sure that most of you have heard it many, many times or repeated many, many times. Today, in 2010, 63 years later, a few things have changed in the meantime. Man has stepped on the moon. We explore Mars and beyond. We have technological miracle which is called internet. We have supercomputers. And for the first time in the history of life, the distance is not anymore an obstacle for communication. For the first time since life exists on Earth, the distance is not anymore obstacle for communication between ourselves. So, to maximize the quality of the air transport problem, the two optimizational problems, this problem with the airplane is solved. Whether you fly with Lufthansa or you fly with British Airways, you will be taken for relatively the same time, relatively the same price, And until there is a new technological miracle, say a new type of fuel, you will have more or less the same services offered to you, because the same optimization problem has been solved by every company, every transportation company in the same way. There is no big difference between Boeing and Airbus. There's no big difference between Lufthansa and British Airways, etc., etc. So let's try to solve the problem for the quality of life in the same way in which the problem for the quality of the air transportation has been solved. If I go, for example, to Lufthansa and tell them, look guys, I'm the best pilot in the world, and I can take the distance from Berlin to New York, providing maximal security to the passengers with minimum amount of fuel for 2 hours less than every other pilot in the world. If I'm lucky, the Lufthansa guys will tell me, okay, let's see, come here, we have a simulator. Sit down on this simulator and try to prove your words on the simulator, but not on the plane. This is the first thing that we need for a good governance. We need a simulator of government. This is a software product. This is a game, a strategy game, like the games Civilization or Age of Empires. Many of you have played them. With a supercomputer, we have today this doable. In 1947, when Churchill mentioned what we said, this was not doable, because we didn't have this technological advancement. So, let us ask any candidate for Prime Minister to be tested at this simulator. Examine him or her exactly as you examine people in school. Then, the winner of this competition could be given a license to govern the country for the next 4 years. And we don't need elections. The state is a complicated machine. The state is much more complicated than a plane. However, look seriously. If you want to drive an airplane, you need a license. For bus, you need a license. For car, you need a license. For motorbike, you need license. For ship, you need license. There are only 2 vehicles for which you do not need license. One is the state, the other is the bicycle. You will ask me, is it democratic to license the politicians? Yes, it is absolutely democratic, because everybody, it is over-democratic, because everybody is invited to sit on the tester, to sit on the simulator. Come and show us what you can do. Remember about the pilot who is going to Lufthansa to ask for a job. And let's try, and we can make the same analogy. The pilot of the airplane is not elected by the passengers. Why? Because if they have to elect a pilot, they will certainly elect the stewardess. Do you remember the name of your pilot who brought you here to Berlin? Does any one of you remember the name? You don't remember the name because it was a good pilot and you didn't need to know his name. Then why we should know the name of our Prime Minister? I dream of the moment when I will not know the name of my Prime Minister. It means that he will be an excellent Prime Minister, and he will be running the country maybe through a remote control. If we're running the NASA spaceship from Pasadena, California, with a remote control, why not governing a small Bulgaria in the same way? Or bigger Germany, or the bigger European Union? I shared with you this minimalistic scenario because I wanted to respect your feelings for elections. I know that you love elections. I myself have passed in the last 20 years 3 times successfully through elections, and 2 times I failed through elections. I'm sure that I have the capacity to be successful in the traditional democratic way, but if I'm put on such a tester, I'm sure that maybe I will fail. But you, the young generations, the gamers, the bloggers, the torrents, etc., you're the people to govern your countries and the world in this new way. But to be 100% frank, in not too distant future, maybe we shall not even need the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister will have not only, we don't need to know not only his name, but he also is obsolete, because the simulator can do the job alone. In 2050, the quantity of information will be 20 times more than the information we have today. It means that what we know today will be 5% of what will be known fact in 2050. The storage, the search, the usage of such a titanic amount of information will be efficient only through a computer, who will hint most of our decisions in one way or another, in one aspect or another. If we can run the plane by autopilot, then the same should be applicable to a country as well. Maybe you think that what I'm talking about is utopistic, but this is real science. This is real science on the intersection of mathematics and economics. Between 1970 and 2007, there are at least 9 Nobel Prize winners for economics who got the prizes for their proofs that no electoral system is compatible with reasonable democracy, or that voting inevitably leads to dictatorship. Democracy has unfixable deficiencies. This is what was realized by these people who got the Nobel Prize. That's why we need a kind of improved electronic democracy, which will help us to avoid these deficiencies. This I'm sure will be democracy without walls. Maybe you remember how did democracy emerged? How voting emerged. In ancient Greece, the first method of taking objective decision without violation was by shouting in the National Assembly. There is decisions to be made. Part of the people think in one way, part of the people in another way, and then shout. And who is shouting louder is the right. Then they found something more practical, to vote instead of to shout. But this is a method to avoid violence. This is not a method to govern. If we want a method to govern, then we have today much better opportunities than just to cast, collect, and count votes. Thank you.